implicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the crowdfunded translation project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Indian left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jacobin, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled
But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And how's everybody doing today? You know, last night after last night's stream, it occurred to me that this Wick TV guy we were watching, that amazing discussion with last night, seemed like somebody who might spend a fair bit of time on Twitter. So I decided to have a look, and it turns out, and this kind of explains a lot, it is a stream full of big Steve the Destiny fans. In fact, this Wick TV dickhead, who you may remember as looking like sort of the lib version of the Quartering, he spends a non-zero amount of time trying to get Hassan to debate Destiny. Like, this is a thing that he has decided is an important way to spend his limited amount of time on this planet. And I think when you know all that, it just explains a lot about, like, literally, that whole fucking mess that we watched. Now, speaking of a hot mess, I had planned to unveil the amazing, this cool intro that I had this idea in my mind to create for David Pac-Man, something along the lines of the thing that I've got for the Quad, those Zionist ghouls, or for Caleb Muppet, and I had expected I was going to have it finished, but the thing is, the graphic rendering, all that stuff takes a huge amount of time, and you have to do a lot of math to get it right, and I don't quite understand the math involved, so I don't get it right very often. But I wanted to give you, I'm kind of proud of, I've started to get the clips together that will eventually become this intro, so I thought I would just start out by showing you some of what it's going to look like. So here you go. There's going to be sound and stuff as well. You would not believe how much effort actually goes into figuring out the math that you have to do in order to get these things to rotate properly, and especially to get them to revolve around an axis and all this sort of stuff. Here's another one. I had to do like 50 takes in order to get, maybe a few seconds of of footage that I can use for a less than 30-second intro. But I think it came out looking pretty fucking cool, actually. Hello, Eliana. So, I think we're going to look at some Pac-Man shit. So apparently, there's been some cope in David Pac-Man world. Not surprisingly. But, so, this is called The Time Has Come, and I forget, I saw it mentioned on the Vanguard, and I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but I remember thinking that it was something that we would absolutely have to be looking at, so we're going to check that out first. Let me know if I need to make any adjustments to the audio.
It's time for the most ugly, disgusting bottom feeding of American society. And
Oh, he's gonna do another crypto ad.
And also some of the most beautiful messages you will ever see from people. It's the messages I get from you, from people.
Oh, that's right. That's what this is. People, his viewers are unimpressed with him, and they send him emails about it, and he tells us what the emails say.
People in the audience. Just deplorable, nasty, antisocial stuff, and messages of inspiration, and a lot of other great stuff. Let's go through a bunch of them. Remember, you can email info@davidpacman.com if you have anything to say to me, good, bad, or otherwise. We'll also sometimes feature comments from our various platforms, posts from the subreddit, etc. We start with Paradox.
Okay. Wow, his messaging lately has earned this person's sub. That's, like, his messaging lately... First of all, it hasn't been all that different, but to the extent it's been different, it's been worse. I would not be proud of this if I were him.
Who says, Pacman, I have always aligned with you, but your messaging lately has earned my subscription.
Well, he said his sub. We don't actually know. He could have meant, like, as in, this person has a sub, and their sub has become loyal to him. Oh, feel free.
I don't know what specifically I might have said to get this lovely person to subscribe to the show.
They must be a lovely person because they like David Pacman. And no bad person would ever appreciate his, like, genocidal bullshit. Ah, cool.
Know if they mean they got a paid subscription or what the deal is. In any case, thank you. I appreciate it. It looks like I have a piece of lint on my shirt. Oh boy. And as embarrassing as that, it actually seems stuck. Oh boy.
Wait, that's the embarrassing thing. Like, out of all the things that he does on stream on purpose, that's the embarrassing thing.
That Paradox Frequency decided that they were going to subscribe to the show. I appreciate that. And as it turns out, some people don't like the book already, including blank blank.
I wonder, is this another one of his shitty AI children's books?
Who wrote in and said, I bought it just to throw it like a frisbee.
It wouldn't throw well as a frisbee. The aerodynamics are all wrong. Blank blank and 7U. I just have to say, I mean, that's not going to work. You're going to need to make all sorts of extensive mods in order for that slot book to be an effective frisbee. The pleasure you will get out of having thrown it will be nothing compared to the embarrassment of having to explain why you own it.
You know, from a sustainability standpoint, I don't love that. Going through the carbon footprint of getting the book shipped to you, maybe you got it at a local bookstore, I don't know, to then just toss it, I don't love that.
I mean, I agree. The carbon footprint of buying a David Pacman slot book, that, I mean, first of all, you have to consider the AI that went into just writing it for him and doing the shitty artwork. But so you spend that money, and then there's all sorts of carbon emissions involved in getting it to you. I mean, that just, I would say just don't buy it, actually.
But if
that's the sustainable thing, and I think David's agreeing with me here. Because the throwing does not have any carbon emissions really associated with it. It's just it's the buying and the having it delivered. That's the problem. So what you gotta do, and I mean, David here is saying it himself, what you gotta do is just not buy the book. It's
buying
good
the
for
book, you're buying the book. And as I've explained, pre-orders are how stores determine, are they going to stock the book or not? And so given that, I appreciate blank blank. A copy is a copy. Jared.
That's just another good reason not to buy the book.
Says.
One thing I noticed as my politics changed is that there's one group of people who think that historically we have been the good guys because of what we do or refuse to do, and this guides their choices for the future. But there's another group that seems to think that we're the good guys because we're us and no other reason. Yes, both of those groups do exist. But just Jared Oz, I just have to say, there are other groups who would look at what the U.S. does and refuses to do and say, actually, no, historically, we have never really been the good guys. historically, we've actually been kind of like some of the shitty guys. Some of the shittiest guys since there have been guys. And currently, we're even worse. So... And yeah, so the people whose choices for the future are guided by their belief that what the U.S. has done up to now qualifies this regime as the good guys actually are a little bit scarier on a certain level because they're doing it with eyes wide open. Yeah, so no, both of these groups are people whose judgment is at the very best suspect.
One thing I noticed as my politics changed is that there's one group of people who think that historically we have been the good guys because of what we do or refuse to do. And this guides their choices for the future.
I mean, let's just remember, David Pacman, I don't know if he personally is from Argentina, but his family is. And he's Jewish from Argentina. And one of the things that historically the United States, the good guys, have done is armed a murderous anti-Semitic dictatorship in the 1970s and early 1980s in Argentina and give them all sorts of diplomatic cover so that they could commit what it was and remains the biggest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust and a huge mass murder of just anyone suspected of being a political opponent. So... like, I know he's not going to bring that up. I would be absolutely, let me just say, I would be absolutely fucking shocked if he did. But accepting this premise, I have to think that even someone as empty as David Pacman seems to be, that has to twist their guts just a little bit.
But there's another group that seems to think that we're the good guys because we're us and no other reason. I love this message because, you know, one of the things that I think differentiates people on the left like me...
Oh, wait, you're not on the left, though.
And these right-wingers that we're often dealing with, is that they would come forward and say, we support the troops in whatever mission the president sends them on.
I love the idea that it's not even wrong. It is actually accurate that the entire socially acceptable political spectrum in the United States is divided in terms of like questions of imperial policy, anyway, between people who disagree on why the U.S. is the good guys. That is actually accurate. That is really true. Their entire books have been written about this, and Jared Oz just says it in a message.
If it's a Republican, because that's simply what we do. Whereas we take a more thoughtful approach. We go, well, sometimes the patriotic thing to do is to support the mission of the troops when it makes sense. Like,
yeah, I mean, the whole point of the support the troops language is to pretend that you've come up with this neutral thing where no matter what side you're on in terms of the war, you at least have to be on the side of the troops, right? And that naturally means wanting the people who are defending themselves against the troops to fail in that effort, because otherwise the troops get hurt.
For example, fighting against Nazi Germany, even though we were kind of late getting involved and really only did so because of Pearl Harbor, but step back.
Well, and on top of that, immediately, the war wasn't even over when the U.S. started putting Nazis and Nazi collaborators into positions of power in their sphere of influence in continental Europe.
That made sense to support on the merits. On the other hand, when George W. Bush sent troops into harm's way in Iraq in 2003, based on faulty or even worse, fraudulent intelligence.
I love how he acts like there's a question here. It's not faulty. It was fraudulent. We knew that at the time. We knew about the Office of Special Plans at the time. This stuff was actually reported on before the thing even started. That the intelligence was so completely on the other side, so completely against this Bush administration claim that Iraq had any kind of weapons of mass destruction, that Rumsfeld himself created the so-called Office of Special Plans just so that they could cherry pick raw intel, just random information that any schmuck can give them, and it all gets written down because it all has to be checked out, and use that and put that into official propaganda in order to justify it. Like, we've known this for longer than he's had a YouTube channel. Which is, and he's had a YouTube channel for nearly as long as YouTube has existed. So, to act like this is at all a question, and also the phrasing, to send them into harm's way. I mean, what about the people who are being harmed by them? The people in Iraq who are just sitting there minding their own fucking business and the US invades. Why aren't we talking about them? That doesn't seem like a very good guys kind of omission, David.
It wasn't patriotic to support the troops and their mission. It was patriotic to say, let's not send people into harm's way for such
Tomas,
disastrous and silly reasons. Let's support the troops.
Disastrous and silly. You know, I was involved in, the anti-war movements at the time. And I can't recall anyone saying that the reasons were silly. I mean, yes, that they were a lie, yes. That the real reasons for it were criminal, but silly?
By saying there's no reason to see thousands of troop lives lost, never mind the lives lost in Iraq.
Well, yeah, thank you for actually eventually lost. Their lives were lost. Now, I mean, they were taken, David. Millions of lives were taken by the troops, actually.
Over that. That was the patriotic thing to do. That is my politics. Let's decide whether we're doing the right or wrong thing, not based on simply, we're America.
Well, I mean, rather than just sort of deciding whether we're doing the right or wrong thing, I mean, surely the thing to do is actually try to stop it. When it turns out, as it generally will, that it was actually a horrible thing that the U.S. is doing.
But on what we're doing. And are we leading or are we not leading? Under Trump, we are certainly not leading. And the
well, I mean, it depends. Leading in what?
Missions that he has for our troops are certainly not ones that we can look at and go, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. All right, next from Just says the Substack is great, but doesn't include the award-winning bonus show.
And I think it's great that Just illustrated the concepts of award and winning with emojis there, just in case.
2 ways for paid subscribers on different platforms to get the daily bonus show. Number 1 is become a member at joinpacman.com. Number 2 is become a Substack premium subscriber at substack.davidpacman.com. Bullshit. Yeah, I don't need to do the whole rant, but no, the Substack does now include the bonus show. All right.
For people who can't get enough of this.
A lot of angry people this week.
This podcast is a load of bullshit. Sniffly face, surprised face, sort of despondent face, I think. Yeah. I mean, Stevie, I think, has brought it, he has come up with a fairly, they have, I suppose Stevie could kind of go in all sorts of directions, has actually kind of pointed out concisely the main thread of this podcast.
Stevie says this podcast is a load of bullshit. It's a free country, like they used to say in elementary school. If you don't like the podcast, you don't have to listen to it.
Wait, okay, so the idea is he wants to, he wants to hear from people, but he doesn't want people to criticize the podcast. I mean, admittedly, this isn't exactly the most detailed criticism. He put about as much effort in this as David Pacman puts in writing his fucking books. But, yeah, sometimes you're going to get critical comment.
You don't have to watch it. I mean, listen, you're not...
I think Stevie knows that they don't have to watch it.
You're not here with a gun to your head. If you don't like it, find a different podcast. I never understand. One of the things... Maybe I'm different.
Yeah, I don't think you are.
I don't know. But number one, it has never occurred to me to write nasty messages to people whose shows I either deliberately watch or accidentally came across.
Well, like, some people feel when they see some bullshit that they have to criticize it. And sometimes we may find ourselves in disagreement over whether it is bullshit or not. I have to say, I think Stevie's quite right on this. Good call, Stevie. But yeah, sometimes people have criticisms. Sometimes people don't like what they're saying. And, like, also, I love the idea that David Pacman doesn't think to go, and if he doesn't like something, he doesn't just, send a comment or something. Motherfucker, if you don't like something, you make a show about it. You have a fucking show. You make money with the fact that you don't like things.
An episode on Fox News of something I don't like, it would never occur to me. Never. To start writing to the host nasty things.
Well, no, because you're going to make content out of it.
Insulting his family, insulting his ethnicity, or the kind of crap I get.
I mean, nobody is bullshit and ethnicity now?
I would just change the channel and move on with my life and find something I like.
If he actually followed that advice, he would have so many fewer videos.
But for some reason, there are people out there. They must lead sad lives, I can only imagine.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, because things kind of suck.
Just move on. Watch something else. Listen to something else. Okay, Rated Arg, in response to Donald Trump recently saying, it was suggested to Trump, you should make the official language of the United States American, not English, not that sissy British crap. American should be the official language. And Rated Arg said, American language, which one? Cherokee, Navajo, Creek, Ute, Choctaw, and makes a good point, which is that even though English is the predominantly spoken language today in the United States, English is an imported language to these lands that came in later than these native languages.
Yeah, and as a result of genocide. Ooh, okay, here we go. Skipping over that.
And says, I got pulled over today by the local PD for a brake light. The officer wasn't wearing mask, didn't ram my car, didn't smash my window, and didn't drag me out of my car.
So Margaret's white, in other words.
He was clearly identified with a clearly marked vehicle and had a body cam.
Yeah, the body cam, Margaret, the body cam isn't for your the body cam doesn't help you. The body cam is to use against you. The cops wanted the body cams in the first place. This whole idea that it somehow aids in accountability, which no it fucking doesn't, because they just destroy the footage that it doesn't suit them, is something that their own PR people came up with in order to sell people on the idea of having cops have surveillance tech attached to them 24/7.
He was professional. He handed me a fix-it ticket and sent me on my way. There's no reason ICE can't operate the same way.
But the thing is, ICE shouldn't operate at all. Like, this isn't a matter of a broken brake light. This is, you're the wrong, this is ethnic cleansing. There's no such thing as a fucking polite ethnic cleanse. It doesn't work like that.
Well, actually, there is, Margaret. There actually is a reason why ICE is seemingly unable to operate with the same level of just basic...
Well, because it's their job to spread terror.
...sick professionalism. ICE recruiting is hitting the bottom of the barrel. One of the people that was recruited by ICE and ultimately killed a guy, by the way, not even the guy they were looking for. Not that, that it would make it right, but it wasn't even the guy they were looking for. Shouldn't even have been allowed to work around guns because of his history of domestic violence.
Well, yeah, but of course the thing is, if you actually... a big part of why domestic violence has never made it into the list of things that make it... that subject you to a ban on owning a firearm is the sheer number of law enforcement who would not be allowed to carry as a result of it. I mean... something like 40% of just local police have had domestic violence complaints against them. So, like, you would be disarming the police if you actually implemented that requirement and enforced it.
And other violence. There was a guy who weighed nearly 500 or 600 pounds who was completely disabled per his doctor.
I think there should be... ICE should hire more guys in that kind of physical shape. I think we would not be having these problems if ICE was just made up of people who really weren't in a position to run.
Not able to do any kind of job. And he was moving ahead in the recruitment process with ICE. And, by the way...
Like, good, actually. Good. Like, anyone who isn't able to go off and spread terror because they're not, like, physically in a condition or they're not otherwise in a condition to do it, I mean, those are the people I want in that job because it makes the place safer. Not... I don't want fucking top recruits in that job because it's a job that shouldn't exist.
What ICE is up to, a lot of sort of sane, normal people wouldn't want to have anything to do with that job.
I mean, and that's been true for a long time because what ICE gets up, like, I love how we're acting as if this is some, like, special thing. This is not, the problem is the fundamental mission of ICE. Sometimes, like, you don't see as much about it now because they've decided to do it a bit more quietly, the way they usually do it under Democrats, which is why they managed to deport way more people. So it doesn't get much media, doesn't get as much media coverage, and you don't have as much advance warning. But the thing is, they're ethnic cleansing cops. That is just literally what they are, and making them more polite is not going to make that better. I mean, one of the almost universally described as one of the worst motherfuckers who worked at Auschwitz was always described as being very polite, very gentle in his manners. And he was also, like, a fucking hideous torturer who did medical experiments on people. So what I'm saying is, maybe the problem isn't that they're unprofessional. Maybe the problem is that they shouldn't be doing this in any demeanor.
And so they are scraping the bottom of the barrel. Not that police always act perfectly. Not that police training is as extensive as we would like it to be, especially when it comes to de-escalation.
Of course he's not going to mention Corey Ruiz. Actually, now that I mention that might not be fair. I think this might have been before that. This is from a few days back.
But compared to what's going on with ICE, there is a reason why those types of interactions seem more difficult and more unlikely to happen with ICE. Typically fine to...
Okay, fine to celebrate the death of bad... What bad people is this about?
Celebrate the death of bad people. And writes...
I mean, I have to say, I agree with the point. Like, it's always struck me as really ridiculous when people are like... say, you know, some horrible person will die and we're all supposed to just hold our tongues and not talk about what they did. It's like, if they wanted to be remembered fondly by all, they should have lived the kind of life where you do that. Like, I think if you're... The best you can hope for, in terms of how you're remembered after you're gone, is that you are, like, remembered in a manner consistent with the way you actually lived your life. And if the way you lived your life sucked, well, I mean, a lot of people are going to be kind of glad to see the back of you, actually.
About this on his show, how you shouldn't celebrate the death of somebody or wish it. I disagree. I think if somebody lived their life on Earth as a bad person, we should be able to talk about it when they finally leave us.
Oh, of course David was on the wrong side of this.
Whatever you do in life, people are going to react to it. The good, bad, and ugly. Live half decently, and people won't celebrate.
True.
The living shouldn't be censored because the dead was a bad person.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Very good point. I'm not sure who this is even in reference to. Because there have been a few... Oh, Lindsey Graham. It must have been to do with Lindsey Graham. And yeah, fuck that guy. I was thinking because there was also Ann Widdecombe, but I'm probably sure that Ann Widdecombe was not on David's fucking radar. So it must have been fucking Lindsey Graham, or... Well, we're supposed to be pretending that Mitch McConnell is alive. So I guess it couldn't have been him, although, yeah, he's not.
Rather,
I mean, I don't have inside knowledge. I don't know it for a fact, but it seems pretty unlikely that he is. And if he is, he's in no fit state. And it is absolutely ridiculous to be dithering for this long rather than just, declaring the seat vacant.
Should be talked about how terrible they were, and let that be a warning to those remaining.
Damn right.
You will not be remembered kindly. We will not say kind words about you. People will celebrate.
Right on. Yeah, absolutely.
I get the point of this email.
And again, let's just remember, people celebrated when Videla died. I mean, part of why they celebrated, of course, is how he died. Because Videla, who was the head of the military junta that murdered like 30,000 people in Argentina with substantial U.S. and Israeli support, he died in prison. He died taking a shit in prison. But of course, part of the reason that people celebrate the death of powerful ghouls, powerful assholes, is precisely that there's this culture of impunity. So it's the best we get is to be able to say, yeah, fuck that guy when they're dead. We didn't, fucking Dick Cheney didn't spend a day in jail, murdered millions, was involved in spectacular corruption, and fucking Harris acted like his endorsement was something to be proud of in 2024. George W. Bush, he's never gonna do any time, not unless there's a fucking revolution in this country. He's gonna probably, and short of a revolution, he is going to die very comfortably in his mansions, in one of them. I mean, same with all of these scumbags. Joe Biden, because we have a culture of impunity. And because we have a culture of impunity, the closest thing that people can get to any sense of catharsis or closure or anything is to be able to say, yeah, fuck that guy when they die. That's it.
And there are some really horrible people on this planet. Or at least we could say people who do horrible things. Maybe they're not deep down rancid, but they've behaved in a rancid way. Would it be?
This is coming from a guy who lied about Israel bombing hospitals.
Morally justified if you've identified someone who in life was such a negative influence on the world that we should be happy that they are no longer going to be able to have that negative influence. Yes, it is morally defensible.
I'm glad we get the moral case from him.
But I asked a different question, which is, do we want to be seen as the movement that celebrates the deaths?
Damn right, yes. I don't... what movement? First of all, he's not part of a movement. The people who are responding, watching this fucking thing, they're not... By doing that, they are not part of a movement. And the fact that he treats it that way is just some sleazy marketing that makes people think that they're part of a movement when they're not. Makes them think, assign a value to their consumer behavior that it does not have. But here's the thing. If they're in an actual movement, something that David has absolutely no understanding of, he's never been anywhere near it as far as I know. He does this bullshit. This is his life. Sometimes you will celebrate when some mass murdering fuck finally leaves us. Especially if there was no way to actually have any level of justice from them while they were alive.
And I think this was a big debate after the killing of Charlie Kirk, where many of us recognized that his influence on the country and the world was a negative influence, and his ideas were bad ideas, and the spread of those ideas was a negative influence.
And, he was, in the end, he succumbed to the culture he created.
And yet, we also, as humans living on the one planet that for now is the one planet we have to live on, can acknowledge that celebrating or wishing for people's deaths is, in a sense, a kind of antisocial behavior.
First of all, wishing for them and celebrating them are two very different things. Celebrating just means, it happened, and now you're saying, oh, it's good, I'm glad. And it's actually, there are times when I would say it's almost mandatory. Because you look at, for example, when Margaret Thatcher died. There was this attempt to create this narrative to say, sad scenes all around Britain today. She was controversial when she was in government, but all are united in respecting her concern for her country. And all this shit, where the idea that, people had, felt one way about her or the other way about her, but everybody comes together and is joined in grief because they all agree that she at the very least wanted the best for Britain or some bullshit. And that is the narrative that is always imposed on these situations, and it didn't work. And it didn't work because everywhere the media went, they would find people celebrating and would just openly say, yeah, I mean, the only thing wrong with her being dead is that it took so fucking long. I just hope she's deep enough that she's not coming back. I mean, like, there's some amazing interviews with just random people. That is important because those narratives, those media-imposed narratives, are poison. They create a falsification of history that is used to misguide people's political decisions as well. Like, when Reagan died, belatedly, there wasn't anything like that, or at the very least it didn't get a whole lot of public attention, so you got this media narrative that was imposed where everybody just loved him, and he looks so, the fucking editorials that were written around it about how he looks down upon us like a friendly ghost and all this shit. It's like, this guy had the blood of millions of people on his hands and made everything that he touched worse. I mean, with the sole exception there of Lebanon, where he decided Menachem Begin had murdered way too many people and ordered him to stop, and he stopped immediately. Good, that was a good one. I'll give him that. But other than that, yeah. But we don't get that. The media managed to avoid even acknowledging that by creating this narrative, and I think it is incumbent upon us to sabotage that narrative generation.
And that, taken to scale, it wouldn't make the world a better place. That's my view on it. It's not about, listen, you should be glad if someone who was a terrible influence on this planet is gone. It's not about that. Do we want to be the movement that celebrates and wishes for the dead?
What movement?
I don't really care about Trump dying. I want him out of power. That's my concern.
Well, yeah, but it's not enough for him not to, like, it's not enough for any of these motherfuckers just to no longer have their job, because they're just going to go off to cushy public sector bullshit and make even more money. There needs to be accountability, and of course, this sort of talk is designed to sort of blunt the call for accountability. To blunt even the idea that there should be accountability. Like...
And, that's my view. Disagree with me? Let me know. Mark wrote in about the ongoing issues.
Okay. Skipping ahead. I don't care about subscription issues on YouTube. Okay. Now... apparently, Pac-Man is teaming up with failed right-wing shock jock Ethan Klein, who's who had to drop his slap suit against Noah Samson recently. Like, that combination is... I'm actually kind of surprised by it, because you would think that David Pac-Man has managed to sort of maintain a sort of blandness that I think is kind of incompatible with, you know, a living crash out like Ethan Klein. But so this is interesting to me. Interesting choice.
Might be setting up a little bit of a collab with the H3 podcast. something we have to look forward to. Everyone make sure to subscribe
This is
to
the
channel.
Vanguard. I'll drop the link in chat. URL osoite.
Hit that notification bell because obviously we're going to be reacting to this when it drops next week. Let's hear Ethan make the announcement.
When we have guests in the studio, I should put these on for the picture.
What's happened to his fucking camera, though? What's happened to his production value? What's with the shaky fucking camera?
Not telling them.
Did he have to sell it to cover the legal costs?
Only our fans will know. I'll just be towering over every single one of our guests.
God, this is making me seasick.
Like, Pac-Man's coming in next week. I should throw these on when we take a photo together. No, it's 5 inches, Hila. It's actually 5 inches.
Like, oh. No. He got lips.
Yeah, no.
Wow, I mean, imagine bragging about that.
Oh, this is the Ron DeSantis special right there, boy.
On H3, on Live and Learn, which most of the hosts of which, such as Hutch, I hardcore disagree with, but I do like Pisco, because again, they do.
I like Pisco, but only the drink.
And again, it's just going to be a circle jerk. There's not going to be any challenging questions.
Of course not.
There's not going to be Pisco there to ask a tough follow-up, about APAC or about the DSA or whatever.
Don't forget, I mean, David Pacman has told us he does not know how to pronounce APAC.
It's just going to be these two guys jerking each other off.
I completely agree. I think that's
And if it were literally the case, then it would have at least some redeeming value, but it doesn't because they're going to be talking. And neither of these guys should do that. They're not. It does not bode well when they are talking.
That's what it is, and here's what they're going to do the whole time. They're going to talk about how bad and evil and destructive Hassan is. They're going to take shots at the DSA. They're going to talk about how they are real Democrats and that they have criticisms of Israel. Right?
But they hide them.
The people who are, on the Hassan Piker left, they're actually anti-Semite.
God, the concept of a Hassan Piker left just is so, that just needs to be destroyed.
And
as a concept,
care about criticizing Israel. They just care about hating Jews, man. That's what they're going to talk about, and they're going to talk about their way ever in such wiping the floor with them because it has been made so clear to everybody in America, regardless of whether or not you really are a socialist at heart or not. You're like, I need to support somebody who's going to beat these guys, so I'm going to vote for the person who I think can beat these guys because the mainstream Democrats, the normie liberals, they have proven they cannot do that.
I mean, what's interesting, it's worth noting, is the Republicans themselves are saying that internally. They're saying they would much rather face these right-wing Democrats like Haley Stevens than anyone who actually seems to be offering a meaningful alternative. And you can see why. Because a lot of people will stay home if you have two, right-wing, shitty Zionist candidates who don't care, who don't support universal health care or anything that will make anybody's life better. Yeah, Maoist Hassan Piker. Because he owns a suit. Fucking, yeah. But, God, what was I saying?
Talked a lot about Asmongold on the show, as you guys know. Completely one of the most disgusting.
Oh, he exceeded his slur quota again.
Racist, far-right commentators online. Also one of the dumbest. He makes Nick Fuentes fucking sound like Noam Chomsky, if we're being real.
Speaking of Nick Fuentes, Hunter Biden platformed him, which is wonderful. Yeah, I mean, just what we need. We need more people platforming neo-Nazis right now.
IQ points and intelligence skills, yeah. So this is pretty funny. Asmongold has been banned from Twitch, Zach. The ban came shortly after comments he made about the situation in Ceuta, I don't know exactly.
Ceuta. It is a Spanish colony imposed on Morocco.
Yeah, in Spain. Twitch hasn't given an official...
It's not in Spain. It's in Morocco. It is a Spanish colony in Morocco. It's Spain's own little personal Israel.
Isn't it yet, but this clip is allegedly what got him banned. So let's take a look at the comments from Asmongold. And here's another racist piece of shit, Tech Tone, reacting to these comments and justifying it, defending Asmongold. So you get a little bit of insight into the community and the culture.
Oh God, I can't wait to hear about the community and the culture.
On the online right.
This is emotional blackmail, right? Yes. You can't shoot these people.
Oh, I see. We got a rec from Tyler Oliveira right there, too. Yeah, okay, so real scumbag stuff here.
Well, they have kids with them. well, then don't bring your kids.
Exactly.
If you don't want to get shot, then don't bring your fucking kids.
Well, wait. So the shooting is specifically for people who have, like, okay, this is wonderful. Totally.
Now, this can sound heartless. Now, let me explain to you what he means.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be...
We're going to explain this.
Well, no, these guys are not. These guys are pointing out, are just providing the context of the latest thing that apparently got Ass Gold banned, which is just some more fucked up Nazi shit from him.
Multiple times throughout this clip. So
they're not. I wouldn't say they're normalizing them.
Criminals, illegal criminals from Africa.
As opposed to legal criminals? Also, by the way, from Africa, Ceuta is in Africa. It's literally, it was imposed by force on Africa. Ceuta is not outside of Africa.
Are forcibly invading other countries, and they're used...
No, they're not.
Children's kids.
Like, their countries are being invaded. Yeah, the intellectual juggernaut.
Asmongold's solution is to shoot them all. Now, you could say, well, why is he going to shoot the women and children?
Because he's a scumbag. There, answered your question.
Because the problem is that an extreme measure needs to be taken once.
An extreme measure
to ensure that more women and children are not being put into the line of fire.
I mean, apart from just how fucking, just deeply fucked up this is, and everything that this tells us about the state of the culture, that this guy has a career saying this stuff. But the thing is, a lot of those people, the reason that they're taking this risk in the first place is they're trying to get away from people who are who are shooting at them like this.
And I know it goes without saying, but it is true that this man is not allowed within 200 yards of the last woman, or the last woman that he was in romantic relationship with. Yeah.
Oh, wow, I'm shocked. Yeah, this guy, he looks like an old softie.
So let me go ahead. By his own admission, guys, let's take a look at the kind of company that this guy keeps. This Tectone figure.
I mean, this Tectone figure is already this, like, if somebody keeps the company of Tectone, that already doesn't reflect well on them.
You are aware of by now. Pink Shoe, my ex-girlfriend, has accused me of a number of things that I can't let go unaddressed.
Okay. Wow, Jesus Christ!
I've been accused of sexual assault, potentially rape, prostitution, and severe emotional abuse, among other things. And guys, this went to court, and it went to court in such a way that he was, let's see, that Travis County Court in Texas issued a 10-year protective order against streamer John Robertson, known as Tectone.
Jesus. Oh, well, don't rely on the AI overview. That shit, that thing is not accurate.
And Pink Shoe,
like, you cannot, you look at the actual articles, like, click on the fucking links, guys.
The judge found reasonable grounds of probable cause that Tectone committed sexual assault and stalking.
So I'm shocked. You're telling me this guy has a problematic history with women? I can't believe it. I can't believe it. But yeah, why does every one of these fucking disgusting racist fucking sacks of shit have, like, some, allegations against them, or, they got divorced by their wife and now they're a fascist?
Oh. Or they suck at swimming and so now they're a fascist.
Fucking predictable. It's so disgustingly predictable. And again, I mean, that's a new fucking low. Advocating for executing children. Innocent fucking children.
Is it really new, though? Is it really new? Because, like, we've been hearing that kind of thing from Israel for, like, 3 years, and we've been hearing a bipartisan group of horrible shitheads. Tectone is a Nazi. Tectone very clearly is a Nazi. I mean, he was just explaining, he was defending Askold's remarks and amplifying them. So yeah, está nazi. Hola Ignacio, ¿cómo estás? But, I mean, Israel, I think, if anything, normalized this. And the fact that, Israeli officials would say these things, and then the Democrats and the Republicans would get together and send them more guns so that they could keep doing the things that they were saying. Like, that's what's normalized this, I think, more than anything. I think Tectone is getting away with more than he might have gotten away with a few years ago, specifically because that taboo has been broken and there's been no accountability.
Children that have no say in what their parents do or don't do, like, they don't fucking have any option to be like, Mom and Dad, it's actually illegal to cross the border.
Yeah, except it's not, though. They're refugees. The thing about refugees is it is legal for them to cross any border, wherever they want and however they want. So, like, actually shut the fuck up, dude.
They're innocent fucking children. What are you talking about? You want to kill them?
I mean, their parents aren't their parents are just as innocent. None of this, well, like, I mean, it's like, yes, on the one hand, yeah, don't kill the kids, but the thing is, let's not throw the parents under the bus. The parents are doing the parents are doing this to give a chance of survival for themselves and their fucking kids. So, I mean, I'm not saying that. I think this was probably a thoughtless remark. I haven't heard anything from, I don't know either of the Vanguard people's names. But, yeah. So he, but, I mean, I don't think we should let that sort of thing go unchecked either. It's worth noting, Andrew Tate's yeah, I mean, the accusations, and actually he's openly admitted to the sex trafficking. He's done videos where he talks about how he made his first $1 million. But it's worth noting, Andrew Tate's father is a black U.S. GI. That's why he's a dual citizen. And as far as that, the majority of Israelis that come here are sex offenders. Actually, you've got that kind of backwards. But what's going on there is a whole lot of sex offenders who are eligible for Israeli citizenship go from here to there to avoid prosecution, not the other way around.
Argue with somebody like that, really? A person like Asmongold, because they're not actually thinking things through. They're not actually...
Yes, they are. Look, we don't need to let them off the hook. Yes, they're thinking them through. They've decided they want to do genocide. They want to do... They're racists. They want to do mass murder.
Themselves in that position. You want to stand behind a fucking gun and shoot a child? What the fuck?
Yeah, because they're scumbags.
What's the matter with you? You need to go in...
Yeah, well, he's a scumbag. He's a Nazi.
And be in a cage. I don't even believe in putting people in cages, but I think there's a real damn good case to be made that you belong there. Dude, are you serious? Imagine that.
Yes, I think he probably is, actually, though.
Imagine that. Imagine putting yourself in a situation where you're on the border in Texas and you're shooting people that are so desperate and so vulnerable that they're willing to risk everything, fucking die of dehydration, risk ammunition, starvation, freezing in the fucking cold, getting washed out of
the CBP are scumbags. The Border Patrol are just fucking murderers. And also, one has to note that although refugees die in large numbers trying to cross the southern U.S. border, Coke makes it across without any difficulty. I'm just gonna move on. That was less discussion than I was expecting on the whole fucking situation involving Ethan Klein. I didn't realize this was a thing that had just been announced and hasn't happened yet. Now, a channel that keeps showing up in my recs lately is called The Humanist Report. I'm not familiar with it, but it's had some interesting video titles. This one is called Centrist Fear Socialist Wins in Swing States Will Lead to a DSA President in 2028. I don't actually think that they have to worry about that because, I mean, Democratic primaries are decided before the first vote is cast because the whole system is just ridiculous. We're not going to get to watch the whole thing. I'm not familiar with this channel, but the title sounds interesting enough. It sounds worth looking at.
Incredibly encouraging as it is to see so many electoral victories for socialists and...
Okay, could we please stop calling social democrats socialists? The level of political illiteracy in the U.S. is bad enough without people who probably do know better contributing to it by calling somebody a socialist who is at best a sockdem. Well, again, fucking Al-Sayed isn't even that. I mean, okay, he has advocated for social democratic things. He doesn't even call himself a socialist. The other ones who call themselves socialists aren't. They're sockdems. But Al-Sayed isn't even that.
socialist adjacent leftists. I don't think we should be arrogant enough to conclude that we're unstoppable, because obviously that is not the case. Now, don't get me wrong, we should be...
I mean, yeah, absolutely, it's not the case. Because the thing is, you're already being stopped by focusing so heavily on electoral politics and so little on actually building movements. Because all this is going to do is it's going to swallow up huge amounts of resources, and it's going to go to a presidential primary, and the presidential primary is going to go to, I mean, it looks like unless something happens to force them to actually consider having somebody not horrible, it's going to be Harris. The Democrats are systematically shoving, just getting us used to the idea that whether anyone likes it or not, she's going to be the nominee, no matter how the vote comes out, because it doesn't matter in the Democratic primary how the vote comes out. The leadership's choice will always prevail one way or another. It's going to be her. So this is pointless. A lot of effort that could have been used to actually build a movement that would actually move us forward is being put towards this shit. I will say, despite that, I am glad to see these sorts of victories, precisely because it does serve as sort of a barometer. It serves as an indicator that those of us who look at the polls and say, actually, there is a substantial appetite for people to, for an actual real change, for some kind of a move to the left, that there... when that alternative is available and it wins, that kind of confirms it, and it's not bad also to have the working class see it as well. Oh, you mentioned him yesterday. Okay, I think I've heard that name before, but I've never actually seen the channel. Okay, thank you for that.
Proud of the progress that we've made, because the progress that we've already made has been genuinely shocking. A poll conducted by SSRS found that a third of Democratic voters
None of it's
already
really shocking.
identify as Democratic Socialists, and this trend is being driven primarily by younger people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that socialism is the future. Or
well, yeah, especially because most of the people who are identifying that way don't know what any of those words mean. They just think it means social democracy. So it does not mean, actually, but that doesn't mean anything, except, I will say, again, the fact that they identify as the thing they understand to mean social democracy already is a way of saying that, just reminding us that the majority of the population is well to the left of the Democrats. No. And that the term, like... We're watching this attempt at another Red Scare, and of course, you know, David Pacman and various other shitheads are involved in it as well, alongside Narco Rubio. But the thing is, the sting has been taken out of these words to a great extent. When people are just openly saying, yeah, I'm a socialist, even though they don't know what the fuck that means, most of them, that means that you can't really use it as a way of casting suspicion on somebody.
Well, obviously, because trends change, and my expectation is that things are only going to get more difficult for us here on out, especially because the establishment is already shitting their pants about the prospect of a socialist becoming president in 2028. So I
don't think they really are. They because these primaries are conducted in a manner, you know, these legislative primaries are conducted in a manner somewhat resembling the way an actual election is supposed to be carried out, you know, but presidential primaries are an absolute joke, and there is absolutely no reason to think that somebody other than whoever the DNC wants to win it will win it, because they openly, they don't even have to break the rules to rig it.
Wish I had the confidence in our ability to win as they do, but I'm going to be cautiously optimistic because things can change.
See, I don't buy that they actually are confident in it either, because they know perfectly well that they can get their candidate to win that. And even if nobody votes for them at all, they will somehow win. What they don't like, though, is that this is showing people once again, people are seeing that actually people like policies well to the left of what the Democrats are offering. And that actually creates a situation where See, there's been this divide, this very clearly measurable divide, which you can see in the polling going back decades, between the majority of the population and the political class basically as a whole, with certain small exceptions. But the thing is, if you don't read the polls for the most part, then you have no way of knowing that this divide exists because the media don't talk about it. The media try to avoid it. The media avoid these kinds of polling results for the most part. So, when you have these sorts of wins, when you see that the only thing that's actually generating any interest in the Democratic Party at all is that you have these alternative, these social democratic candidates who are running against these, you know, well-established right-wing figures who are extremely well-funded, that's going to make the leadership somewhat nervous for the future because people are now aware of the divide.
We do live in a late-stage capitalist hellscape, after all. But the reason why I'm not going to be overly confident, or the reason why I'm less confident than they are, we'll say, is because these people are not just going to let us steamroll them. The New York Times reports that Third Way, the right-wing flank of the Democratic Party, vowed to spend $15 million to
Yeah, this is what they're spending. They're spending more money against against social democrats who want to run as as Democratic Party candidates than they will to actually fight Republicans.
Credit the DSA movement between now and 2028 because they fear that Dr. El-Sayed is paving a path for a progressive to seize the party's presidential nomination in 2028 and then go on to lose the general election.
Except they know perfectly well they would not lose the general election. And that's exactly what scares them. What they're afraid of is not that these people will lose, because the polls make it very clear they would be unlikely to lose. Because what they're offering is a lot closer to what most people want than what the Third Way has on offer. What they're afraid of is that somebody like this might win. Or that somebody like this might lose in a way that it becomes very clear that it wasn't a clean result, that it wasn't actually, that there was something that there was some sort of a fix-in. But they are more concerned than anything about the fact that somebody like this actually is popular. And that's why they want to spend all this money on propaganda, even knowing that it will actually weaken their election chances.
Now, Jonathan Cowan, the president of Third Way, says it is deeply troubling to see radical far-left candidates win.
Radical far-left candidates. These people are just calling for things like universal health care and maybe a little bit of rent control as a treat. Radical far-left. Not a single one of them is even calling for anything to be nationalized.
Places that are potentially presidential swing states. Now, to be clear, their fear isn't that a socialist or progressive would lose a presidential election. Their fear is that they'd win. Or
that they would have every right to win based on the level of support, and so there would have to be some sort of serious manipulation in order to prevent them winning.
Made it abundantly clear that that is the worst case scenario. They prefer fascism to socialism, literally. I say this because, as the Times explains, Cowan said that the effort would include opposition research into DSA, polling, social media programs, whatever that means, and educating Democratic activists and leaders. It would target both proud Democratic socialists and those such as Dr. El-Sayed, whom he derided.
He is performing the DSA dodge. Like, what the fuck? He's trying to make that into a term.
As performing the DSA dodge, flirting with the Democratic Socialists enough to get their organizing manpower and support while remaining distant enough to avoid the explicit label. They add how this discrediting campaign will affect the current midterm cycle, potentially undercutting Democratic nominees in swing state races and undermining the party's...
It remains unclear. I think they actually they summarized it pretty well under the M-dashes. Of course, the thing is, the sort of attack ads that somebody associated with Third Way would come up with, I could see them actually backfiring. Because the things that Third Way thinks are so horrible and scary and discrediting are exactly the sort of things that actually resonate with a lot of the public.
Congress,
the Third Way is just a bunch of country club motherfuckers who live in a bubble.
Of self-sabotage. These are conservative Democrats spending money not to elect more Democrats, but to make progressive Democrats lose so they can blame a potentially negative outcome in the midterms on the left. This is the calculation that they're making. Use the midterm election to snuff out this movement in its crib in order to better position a moderate to win the Democratic Party primary
of course
race in 2028.
And when the reality is, and this is the how pathetic the whole thing ends up being, is that if the Democrats do it all well in the midterms, it is entirely thanks to the goodwill that comes their way from these candidates, from these politicians, these social democrats like El Sayed and Mamdani and the rest of them. And the people who actually control the party fucking hate that. They would rather pull the plug on their party than actually acknowledge that the only thing that will make it relevant is to completely clear out, just clean house and get rid of all these right-wing assholes that nobody likes and replace them at the very least with some earnest social democrats or something.
And I don't think it's hyperbole to call these Democrats fascist collaborators, because
they are
exactly what they're doing. At a time when authoritarianism and fascism has taken control of our entire government, these people are focused on bolstering the narrative that it's actually the left who's gone too far, not the far-right extremists who are control of everything. Anyone who contributes to this particular narrative, and I mean anyone, is a useful fucking idiot for fascism. Period. But to be real...
The thing about the term useful idiot, though, I mean, ableism aside, is it implies that the person doesn't know what they're doing. These motherfuckers know what they're doing.
$15 million isn't really that much in the grand scheme of things, especially considering how we already have millions and millions being spent against us by AIPAC and, corporate lobby.
Yeah, that's actually less than was spent on the one... that's less than one group of donors supplied to Haley Stevens in her failed bid in the primary.
So, $15 million over 2 years is chump change, comparatively speaking. But this story speaks to how...
I don't even know how many ads you can buy with that.
Because if AOC or Ro Khanna can win the Democratic nomination in 2028, then it's game, set, match for the moderate wing of the party, at least.
Wait. No, because both of those people... In fact, everything that we're seeing, if we want to actually talk about the fix being it, we need to talk about all the different ways. We have to talk about the fact that some of the first things that a lot of these supposed insurgent candidates will do the minute they win their primary is to deliberately signal to the right wing of the party that they're not a threat. We saw AOC do that when she won her first primary. I mean, El Sayed accepting the Harris endorsement and posting about it is another example, I would have to say, because the thing is, that does not benefit El Sayed. And he knows it, and Harris knows it. The way that works, that endorsement benefits Harris if he accepts it. Because the idea is she has been quietly having these talks, according to various media reports, with unnamed pro-Palestine people, who knows who, but about just how she can kind of make herself minimally socially acceptable in public. And so one thing that could actually very much help her is for somebody like Assayed, who acknowledges the genocide, who has actually spoken quite eloquently about it, to say that it's still okay, yes, she's a perpetrator of the genocide, but he'll accept her endorsement. She is socially acceptable to be around. She needs that. He doesn't. And he is very clearly a clever enough politician that he knows that. So when you see that, that is something, it isn't dispositive, but you should say, okay, that is a discordant note. That is something that looks like a fairly, like a sign of a willingness to accommodate with the right wing. And you should always be careful about those things, because, and we shouldn't necessarily moralize too much about them, because it is a recognition of structural power. And the right wing has structural power within this political system that comes from a real base, namely the fact that they are funded and bankrolled by the people who basically own everything, and those people are pretty hardline right-wingers. So it's not entirely surprising that you would actually see this, but it does not signal a willingness to actually fight and, ring in a new day or something. You know, same thing with like these endorsements of Hakeem Jeffries. Like, why? The guy is one of Trump's biggest allies in Congress, apart from everything else. Horrible person, stands for absolutely nothing. His Twitter feed read like AI slop before AI slop existed.
Short term, the left gains control of the party apparatus, it gains control of party operations within the DNC, and more importantly, it gains control of the money faucet.
Yeah, except it doesn't gain control of the money faucet. Because the money faucet isn't in the party. The money faucet is all these fucking foundations that billionaires fill up with money. And all they have to do, if they don't like what they're seeing in the party organization, is just turn off the money faucet. Right now, apparently, the Democrats are just short of fucking bankrupt. And, you know, actually fairly hard up for cash. Now, I have to say their balance sheet and their idea of hard up for cash is rather different than most people's. But the point is, the money faucet is not in the party. They run through that money very quickly. They don't hang on to it. The money faucet is all of these billionaires that, you know, in the, you know, Third Way and 1630 Fund and all of these different foundations, and that is where the money is. That is, so they can't control. The only way that, you know, the left will control the money spigot is if we just have a revolution and socialize the means of production, and then we just take over all that shit, and then the working class just controls all of it. But short of that, the billionaires are just still going to control the money faucet.
We fear that the left would marginalize and sideline them in the same way that they marginalized.
I mean, they ought to be. People would fucking cheer if they did, because people tolerate these right-wing figures. Nobody actually feels particularly affectionate towards them. Not most people.
Why they're trying to team up with fascists to stop the left from ascending. Because to them, a short-term electoral loss in the midterms is preferable to an alternative situation where the left actually has some real power within the Democratic Party. But I say all this to say that they're not just going to stand back and let us
like,
crush
to the extent, I mean, in fact, one thing I need to add, when he's talking about, like, power and everything, the only way that you would actually have power is not, it would not be anything to do with controlling the money spigot. It would be because there was an actual mass movement that was being nurtured by these politicians. Yeah, this is something that Kshama Sawant in her Breaking Points interview talked about at some length, about the difference between, like, running on a social democratic platform and trying to use your position in office as a way of actually helping build, you know, grassroots mass organization. That is where there could be power. But they're not going to do... These people aren't doing that. Sawant says that that would be her way of doing things, and I think it would be... I mean, her ideas of what to do if you win an election are more sensible than a lot of, you know, left electoralists. I'll say that. But I really do not see any of these people actually doing it. We haven't seen it anywhere. So, but that is, to the extent that power could be built to be counter to the immense structural power that the right-wing machine has, it would just have to be class power organized by, you know, on a large local and national and regional scale by the working class. But none of these people show any interest in doing that.
They're not going to allow themselves to be steamrolled. And that's the point that I really want to drive home with this video. If they can't defeat the left by running moderate candidates with the message to compete with what we're pitching to voters...
We should stop using their own terminology here, let me just say. Because I hear them, they call themselves centrists. And that's a lie. That is just based on this arbitrary notion that wherever people declare whatever they stand for to be the center. That's all that means. It's totally arbitrary. If we actually use some kind of an relatively objective metric, say majority public opinion, all these people are well to the right. They call themselves centrists because that sounds better than admitting that they are right-wing. Same thing with moderates. These people aren't moderate. Like, doing genocide in Palestine isn't moderate. I'm not saying that he says it is, but these are I imagine this is an unreflected use of the term. But these people who call themselves, centrists and moderates are actually really right-wing extremists.
Then they're going to find different ways to undermine the movement. And when they have the entire political establishment and capital, every corporation, foreign governments, and Republicans on their side, they're going to be able to concoct a bunch of different ways to rat-fuck the left out of power. I mean, all we have to do is look to the past to see the types of strategies deployed against the left that crushed the left. They worked. There was COINTELPRO, a covert initiative initiated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
I mean, you could just look actually at Chile when Allende was in government. You can see exactly how these things work. Because the people who owned everything just immediately set about sabotaging the economy with a substantial assistance from the CIA. And everything that was done in Chile could work just as much here. Because you still have even more concentration of ownership now than there was back in the 1970s. It would take literally a tiny number of people to just get together and say, okay, we're going to stop providing any services, any contracting services to the U.S. government, anything to do with any of these, social programs or whatever. Yeah, the capital strike would be highly effective if there wasn't an organized working class ready to break it.
1956, aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, and disrupting various political organizations deemed radical in the United States. Initially, they focused on the Communist Party. The program expanded throughout the 1960s to include a range of groups such as the Black Panther Party, civil rights organizations, feminist groups, and various anti-war factions. COINTELPRO employed a variety of controversial tactics, including misinformation, illegal break-ins, and harassment to discredit
and murder a couple of times. They also did some murder. And one thing to note about COINTELPRO is, it all came out around the same time as Watergate in the Church Commission hearings. And at the time, there was enough public outrage that in Congress they started seriously talking about creating some sort of a statutory charter that would limit the authority of the FBI, put it on a real legal footing, which it isn't on, even now. And the FBI didn't like that, so they came up with this voluntary honor code that said, we won't do things like COINTELPRO anymore, we promise, sort of thing. But with no legal there's nothing legally binding about it. Well, after 9/11, when all the temporary restrictions on human rights were imposed that remain very much non-temporary even today, John Ashcroft, as Attorney General, and therefore the person ultimately in charge of the FBI, amongst other things, rescinded that voluntary honor code that said that the FBI would promise not to do COINTELPRO again. So they don't even have a non-binding voluntary honor code saying that they won't do COINTELPRO again. Where that's, that's been openly, explicitly on the menu again since 2001.
Now, as many of you know, organizers like Fred Hampton, the chairman of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panthers Party, was assassinated by the FBI after he managed to bring together a working-class coalition of people across racial lines. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was spied on everywhere that he went. His hotel rooms were even bugged, and in an effort to splinter the movement, the FBI actually sent him an anonymous letter pretending to be a black man who called Dr. Martin Luther King a fraud and told him to kill himself because his movement was supposedly hurting black people. And in a book...
Yeah. I mean, and that was just one of many such letters he received.
By Aaron Leonard and Connor Gallagher, called A Threat of the First Magnitude, they explain at length how FBI informants actually managed to gain leadership roles in the Black Panthers, in the Communist Party, as well as the Revolutionary Union, all throughout the 1960s and 1970s. And things haven't really changed that much since the days of COINTELPRO. Trump's McCarthyist...
Yeah, I mean, especially because nothing happened in response to COINTELPRO that even approached any kind of true never-again commitment. And that's what they're trying to... When you see these attempts to sort of rehabilitate the image of Kamala Harris, etc., those are also attempts to avoid any kind of commitment to never doing certain things again, like, say, genocide. But it is time for me to wrap up for tonight. Thank you for joining in. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and if you did, you will be happy to know that I will be back this coming Friday at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I very much look forward to seeing you then.